Welcome back. We just finished 11.6 and now we're going to dive right into 11.7. So 11.7 is just simply comparing fractions. Well, wait a minute, we've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 lessons. So it says use a strategy to find the greater fraction, and I'm starting off on page 519. So 2/3 and 2/8. All right, well, one strategy I know to compare my fractions 2/3 and 2/8 is to draw a picture. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to divide this into thirds and this into eighths. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll draw another little guy down there for eighths. Okay. And then I'm going to shade in to thirds and I will shade in to eighths. Use a different strategy to check your answer. Well, so drawing a picture is always one. Another strategy I know is if they have the same numerator, I can just compare the denominators. Well, thirds are greater sections, but there's less of them. In eighths, there are a lot more sections, but they're smaller. So therefore, I know that 2/3 is greater than 2/8. There's more than one way to solve that or strategize that. You can draw any form of picture. You can put it on a number line, however makes sense for you. All right. Let's move on to page 520. We are now looking, it says we're going to compare 5/6 and 2/3. So I'm going to put 5/6, 2/3. All right, they don't have the same numerator, nor do they have the same denominator. So we are going to solve by using fraction strips, okay? So in some cases, it says it's easier to compare fraction parts that are missing than others. Notice each fraction is one part away from being equivalent to 1. So compare the missing pieces. All right, so I'm going to draw it and then try to use different colors to kind of match the picture that we are looking at. Okay, so I have one whole, and then my sixths are on top, and I'm going to go ahead and divide my thirds first. So I've got my thirds, because these are my fraction strips. 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, and 6, 6. So these are all 1/6. Okay. Then they have some shaded for you. So they've got 2/3 shaded. I know my thirds aren't the most even. I apologize. And then we've got 5/6. Okay. Compare the missing pieces. Because 1/6, so now we're just going to look over here. 1/6 compared to my missing pieces, so my 1/6 compared to my 1/3, 1/6 is a smaller piece, okay? So because 1/6 is less than 1/3, a larger piece of 2/3 is missing. Do you guys see that? So see, I'm missing a larger chunk of my thirds to get to one whole than I am my sixths. So with that being said, 5/6 compared to 2/3, 5/6 is larger. There is a smaller fraction missing from the sixth to get to one whole than there is the third, okay? So that's one example. Another example is when the denominators are the same. Okay, so 3/8 and 5/8, you're just comparing the numerators. 3 is less than 5. 3/8 is smaller than 5/8. Okay, and then the third example is when we're comparing fractions that have the same numerator. Okay, so the numbers that are the numerators are the same. Look at the denominators 6 and 8 to be able to compare the sizes of those parts. The fraction with the greater denominator is the smaller fraction. Okay, so there are more pieces of 8s than there are 6s. So 4/6 is the greater fraction. If either of those two examples are confusing with the same denominator or the same numerator, go check out 11.4 and 11.5. Okay, watch those videos again. So now we're down at the show and grow number 1, where it says compare 1/2 to 1/8. Well, think about even some pizza examples. If I have half a slice of pizza, let's see. Let me put some of these markers down. All right, so if we are looking at 1/2 compared to 1/8, I've got 2 pizzas here. This one is split in half. This one is going to be split in, or cut into 8 pieces. All right, let's shade 1/2 compared to 1/8. Which one's larger? 1/2 is larger, okay? So you're gonna have some of those that you need to compare. Let's look at number 2 because the numerator isn't the same and either is the denominator. So let's look at number 2 on 520. Let me erase that. All right, so we are looking at 3/4 compared to 5/6. All right. I'm going to make my fraction strips, okay? So I'm going to draw my fraction strips. This top is going to be 1 whole. And then I'm going to divide it into 4ths. Okay, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4. And then I'm going to divide the bottom into 6. So we have 1/6 in each. All right, here we go. Shading in 3/4. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to shade in 5/6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, just like in the example at the very top, I'm going to first compare 1/4 to 1/6, okay? So if I'm looking at what is left, I have a bigger fraction of my 4ths left compared to my fraction of 6. So therefore, 1/4 is greater than 1/6. With that being said, out of my 3/4 and 5/6, I am missing a greater chunk of a 4th to get to 1 whole than I am the 6th. So 5/6 is our greater fraction, okay? So when the numerator and the denominators aren't the same, I would draw out your fraction strips. First compare the fraction that is missing, and then you can compare the fraction that is left. So that's all what 5 through 13 is, okay? So for numbers 14 through 16, I only get sample answers in the book, which means there's more than one correct answer. So 14, pick any fraction that is greater than 5/6. 15, pick any fraction that is greater or that is less than 2/8. And 16, any fraction that's greater than 3/4. All right. 17, Newton and Descartes have the same size lunch. Newton eats 2/3 of his lunch. Descartes only eats half of his lunch. Who eats more? Well, let's compare your fractions. Okay, if I'm comparing, Newton eats 2/3 of his lunch and Descartes eats half of his lunch. Okay, well, let's put my half in my thirds. So Newton eats half of his, Descartes eats half of his, Newton eats 2/3 of his. Newton's fraction is greater, so Newton eats the more lunch. For 18, with digging deeper, it says use the fraction symbols to make 2 statements true. So using those 4 fractions, you get 4 fractions, then a greater than and a less than. Move them around so it makes 2 statements that are true. All right. So now I'm on 522, and I am looking at the modeling in real life, okay? So Newton walks 3/8 of a mile to school. Descartes walks 5/6 of a mile to school. Who walks farther to school? So you first need to understand the problem. Understand what it's asking you, okay? So for understanding the problem, I know that Newton walks, so I'm going to put an N. He walks 3/8 of a mile. 3/8 of a mile. Descartes walks 5/6 of a mile. Okay? So that's understanding the problem. That's step 1. Make a plan. What am I going to do? I'm going to compare 3/8 and 5/6. Okay, that's step 2. Solve. All right, here we go. 3/8 and 5/6. All right. How am I going to figure out which one is greater? Well, you can do a few things. You can always draw out your fraction strips. I'm just going to turn them into circles. Okay, so I'll make this one into 8s. We've got 8 there, and this one into 6. All right. And then I'm going to shade in 3/8. And I'm going to shade in 5/6. Well, there's a lot more missing out of this circle than that one. So I know that 5/6 is the greater fraction. So Descartes walks farther to school. Okay? So you're going to have questions like that for 19, 20, and 21. All right, so you're really going to have to understand the problem is the first thing you need to do. So just rewrite what it's asking and then figure out what the problem is asking. Make a plan. Well, for this one, we needed to compare the 2 fractions and then solving it however you need to solve. If you want to make your fraction strips, put it on a number line, draw a picture like I did, however you need to solve to get the right answer. Okay, my advice is take your time, use whatever strategy works best for you. Okay, good luck.